I'm a guy that's 24. Each day I build some more. I like episode 7 and episode 8. I'm Rich Boy J. Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here back in with another video, and this is going to be another episode of collecting every LEGO Star Wars minifigure. This is a series dedicated to me finishing up my minifig wall by collecting all those beautiful, gorgeous LEGO Star Wars figures. This does include the rare figures like the Cloud City Boba Fett and the Chrome Gold C-3PO. This does not include the weird one-off figures made of rare earth minerals. To get things started off this week, we have a couple of clones. I know you guys are always excited to see clones. Over to the left side, we have what Bricklink calls a clone commander. This was from the 2010 Turbo Tank, and this is basically the same animated clone that we've known, same torso, same helmet, and that same clone face underneath the helmet. But the special thing about this is the black gear. I wanted to talk about this a little bit because I'm honestly shocked by how many people actually like the attachments and gear that they made for these figures. As a kid, I was just never a fan of these. I remember I got these in that original Clone Wars wave with the gunship and the ATTE, and I don't know, they just didn't look right to me. I think they definitely look better in the black color, but getting them in just that solid dark gray color it just really stuck out on the decently printed figures. It looked like they were prototype parts, like they were unfinished in a way. I especially didn't care for the commas that went around their legs because they were made out of plastic and you couldn't move the legs around in them. I was just always confused by LEGO's decision to start doing this. I never was a fan of it. But like I said, I think it does look better in the dark gray. I think the visor is probably the only thing that I can kind of understand why they would do. I mean, it's obviously necessary. And I think the antenna is also a good one, but like doing a hard like molded pauldron and a hard molded comma, I just never understood that. But apparently people like those, so I don't know. I don't really know what to say about those, but you know, it's an okay figure overall. Moving over to the right side, we have a 501st clone pilot. This was in the 2013 Headhunter set. Man, 2013 was such a good year for LEGO Star Wars. The first thing I have to talk about on this figure is this custom helmet mold. It's a very nice looking helmet mold, I think. The printing on it is pretty good. Has some nice back printing on the torso. This is still a Clone Wars styled figure, but they weren't stylizing them so much as they were with the Phase 1 variant. You can see the differences on the torsos especially. This was kind of that transition phase where they were starting to realize that this wasn't it, Chief. I like that he has a little device on his chest with these small tubes connecting to it. I always mention this when it comes to these pilots and the tubes, but I mean, after the First Order pilot figure, like all these figures could use some really nice updates with actual molded tubes. I know it's a long shot hoping for a 501st pilot with that, but who knows? I mean, with the 501st battle pack, you have to think we're gonna get more Clone Wars sets, more clone figures, more updated clone figures, and hopefully that means they start implementing a few of the new things they're doing with minifigures, like the actual soft tubes. I don't know, we'll see. But overall, I actually really do like this figure. I'm glad to finally have one of these in my collection. The next figures we have are old Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Maul. The Obi-Wan figure is almost exactly the same as the figure we looked at last week, I believe. The unique thing about this one is it has pupils. That's literally it. The torso is the same. Cape is obviously the same. This one has pupils. The weird thing about this is this also came in a 2013 watch set. I don't know what it is about these watch sets and putting out these weird one-off figures. Like it puzzles me so much that LEGO does that so often. Like the version of this without the pupils was a one-off in that watch set, and this one with the pupils is also a one-off in a different watch set. Like I don't get it. I really don't get LEGO's design philosophy with that. You would think that if they just had, you know, a figure to put in those watch sets, they'd keep them consistent. Like why make a new figure just for a watch? But I don't know. I really do not understand that. Next up is Darth Maul, and this, you guessed it, came in another watch set. This was actually in two different watch sets in 2010 and 2012, and the unique thing about this Maul is apparently the silver neck clasp. Like that's literally just it. Like it's called Darth Maul with silver neck clasp. So you notice the neck clasp really sticks out here. I think the previous versions of Maul I guess either didn't have the neck clasp at all or didn't have it in this like reflective silver color. But the funny thing about this is, I mean, this figure comes with the hood, and when the hood's on, you hardly even notice the neck clasp. So once again, it's weird that LEGO decides to do these just one-off unique designs with watches. Honestly, wouldn't be shocked if it was the case that like they like prototype these figures, or they had an idea like, oh, we'll do this figure, and then they decided they didn't like it and decided to run with something else, and they just decided to keep all the excess and just were like, just throw them in a watch. Like, there has to be some reason that it's always these weird one-off figures in the watch sets. Honestly, I would not be surprised if the watches just get an excess of some figure. The final two figures we have are some Stormtroopers. Starting on the left side, we have a Sand Trooper. This was in the 2003 or 2004 original Cantina set. This thing is rocking that original Mustache Trooper Stormtrooper helmet, and man, and I'm glad they updated this. This is just the most derpy, depressed looking Stormtrooper print they've ever done on the helmet. Like, I'm super happy they ended up fixing that. Standard original Stormtrooper printing on the torso, which actually isn't that bad. Like, it's pretty good for the time. He has this orange pauldron on his shoulders, and it's a giant pauldron. Oh man, it like reaches down to his wrist. I like the first order ones they did, making those a bit shorter. The giant pauldrons always look kind of silly to me, but it was cool to have them. I like that LEGO decided to actually implement those into figures. This figure comes with a backpack. You can see it's pretty simple design with the two lightsaber hilts on the back. Pretty straightforward stuff here. This is a good figure for nostalgia, like playing LEGO Star Wars 2. This is the Stormtrooper they used, and I guess it means something to me in that regard, but I can't sit here and tell you I think this is a good looking Stormtrooper, because it really isn't. The newer ones are so much better. Now we have an even more controversial Stormtrooper to talk about. This is the Rebels Stormtrooper. This came in 6 different Rebels sets from 2014 to 2016. And I have a lot of things to say about this, because this has to be one of the most disrespectful minifigures I've ever seen. I'll first start off by saying that it's not LEGO's fault. It's not LEGO's fault at all. This is pretty close to the Stormtroopers we see in Star Wars Rebels. I think that trying to print that style of helmet on the just standard helmet mold probably wasn't the best idea. There's just things that make this look even more weird than the helmets we see in Star Wars Rebels. But I just can't see why you would make this figure with a stylized helmet. Like, I would love to know what you guys think about that, about LEGO trying to recreate the style of these animated shows in the actual figures. Like, it's my opinion that the figures never look better when they're done in the animated style. I think it's almost always the case that the movie version looks superior. So then my question then is, why even bother with the animated version? Like, why bother making a new figure? Like, no one would have complained if that Imperial Troop Transport set came with just 4 standard Stormtroopers that at that time. Like, I think that would have been fantastic. But the fact that they included 4 of these guys in it, and it's not often that we get battle packs with 4 of the same trooper, especially a Stormtrooper. So that set coming with 4 of these, I just thought was so disrespectful. Like, I'm just not a fan of this giant frown on this figure. It looks so bad. Like I said, like, even if you like the Rebels art style, like, I think you'd be hard pressed to find people who actually prefer this over the movie version. I'm just so puzzled by that. Like, I never understood why LEGO would go out of their way to make something purposefully look off and not fit in with the rest of the movie versions of these figures. But I'll put that little tirade aside. When it comes to this actual figure, like I said, it's close to the design that we see in Rebels. So, I mean, LEGO did a good job recreating what we see on screen. We have a special addition to the minifig wall this week, and it is the Boga. Yeah, I picked up a Boga. I actually had the original Revis Speeder Bike Chase. This came from a 2005 set, the original wave of episode 3 sets, and I had it when I was younger, but I was like missing parts to it, and I'm sure I probably have all the parts of this thing somewhere in my collection, like deep down from my really old stuff. But I basically just decided I don't want to have to look for it. Like, I don't want to go like dumpster diving to find all the individual elements to my Boga. So I just decided to buy a new one, and it looks pretty good. Like, I mean, it certainly brings back some memories. I just remember having my Grievous wheel bike set and my Boga and playing that chase around as a kid. It was a good time. In terms of the actual molds here, I think the head actually looks really good. I mean, of course it could use printing. I think the body is probably where it doesn't look too good. Like, the body's honestly kind of comically undersized compared to the head. The legs being sand green also doesn't help. I think these are actually from the original dewback. That's why these are in sand green as opposed to the dark green. I think this is a creature in Star Wars that we could really benefit from, one, getting an update from, because when we see this thing more than we see a dewback, like a dewback's just kind of a thing, but like a main character actually rides this in episode 3. So right off the bat, it would just make sense to redo this. But then also, just printing, I think, would really elevate this thing and make it look incredible. One thing I realized is this thing didn't come with the bridle, which was kind of annoying. So I'm gonna have to purchase one of those, and maybe I'll even throw episode 3 ObiWan on top of this for kicks. Figures have been placed. Let's check in on the wall. There was Darth Maul. He's supposed to be here between the green asteroid droid and Luke from the Desert Skiff set. And you can see there's no space for him. I just had to place him like that. This is a big reason why I haven't shifted the wall yet, because things like this come up, and I want to make sure that I have a good portion of all of these figures at the top, maybe just missing like the super expensive ones, before I make it a point to take everything down and realign them, because I would hate to have to do that more than once. That would actually be quite annoying. We also have our Rebels Stormtrooper right next to General Veers over here. Another thing I didn't really have space for is the Boga. I kind of just sat him right here next to my 2 Jabba Big Figs, and not really too much I can do with this. Like, I mean, that's the thing about the minifig wall, right? I'm still doing like the creatures and such, and those don't have dedicated minifig numbers, so I'm kind of just forced to place them anywhere. I think long term, once I just have, you know, my setup finalized, because I still need to extend this wall. There's so many figures that have happened after where I stopped last year, basically around April, so they'll need to extend both upwards and downwards. I'll probably end up just moving these 2 things out of the way. It's gonna have to happen at some point. But that's pretty much it for the addition of the figures to the wall today. Wall's still looking pretty good. This is probably the most consistently I've ever pumped out these minifig wall updates, which is fantastic. I love making progress on this thing. I just love having this nice history of LEGO Star Wars here right in front of me on this wall at all times for me to check out. So that's gonna finish things up. If you like what I do, guys, go ahead and support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing that subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.